Hey everyone, I'm here with the host, and today we're going to tell you a scary story. So, this is my first time actually doing a read along with you guys, so I hope you enjoy it. If you haven't seen my videos before, normally I post stories on a platform, and then here I post reviews, recommendations, news updates, all kinds of things. So, if you haven't seen those types of videos from me yet, go check them out. Otherwise, I hope you enjoy our first ever read along together. Let's do it. My name is Daniel Holt. I'm 42 years old, and I work the night shift at a museum most people in town don't even know exists. It's small, tucked away on a side street near the river, its brick walls weathered black by decades of damp air. Inside, its windows are clouded with dust and condensation so thick you can barely see inside. Outside, the sign above the door simply reads Mortuary Heritage Hall. The paint is chipped and peeling, and most people assume it as abandoned until they step closer and see the hours posted. 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., Tuesday through Saturday. On the inside, the museum is filled with funeral artifacts, coffins, death masks, mourning clothes, photographs of the deceased posed with their living families, jewelry made with the hair of the dead. It's the kind of place high school kids dare each other to break into, though most of them never get further than the front steps before chickening out, their bravado evaporating in the unnatural stillness of the place. I've worked there for 7 years, not because I love death, but because it's steady work and the paycheck clears. I wasn't married, never had kids, never even had a real relationship past 30, not that it mattered anyway. No one from town wanted to date me. I had dirt under my fingernails and the scent of old wood and stale mildew clung to my clothes. People assumed I was some mortician's assistant, some embalmer who dealt with corpses all day and soaked up the grim energy they radiated, but I never even saw corpses. The collection was simply a bunch of objects frozen in time, preserved in formaldehyde and locked behind glass. I lived alone in a one-bedroom apartment with flickering lights and thin walls, the kind where you could hear your neighbors cough through the plaster. There was a young couple next door, always arguing. I could hear the man's booming laughter followed by the woman's sharp words. She sounded terrified. Sometimes I thought I heard screaming, but maybe I imagined it. I wasn't unhappy, but I wasn't happy either. Just drifting through each day, eating microwave dinners at the chip table in my kitchen, watching TV dinners get cold while the evening news droned on about politics I didn't care about, brushing my teeth under buzzing fluorescent light, walking to work with my hands shoved deep in my jacket pockets, the cold wind stinging my face. The museum during the day is quiet, but at night it's worse. The silence feels thick, like the air itself presses down on you. The building is long and narrow, the floor is groaning with every step, the exhibits arranged in dim corridors that smell faintly of mildew and old wood polish. I made my rounds each night with a flashlight and a keyring that jingled with every step. I made sure the doors were locked, checked the window locks, pulled the security shutters shut, and set their locks clicking into place. I walked past glass cases, ignoring the faces of the long dead staring back at me with painted smiles. I counted the shadows growing longer, listened to the silence stretching, unbroken, punctuated only by the tick of the old clock in the foyer and the faint hum of the ancient heater. I knew the sounds. The creak of floorboards, the rattle of a loose shutter, the flutter of mice skittering in the walls. But one sound didn't belong, and it started just after midnight on a Thursday. I was halfway down the east wing where the coffin exhibits are when I heard it, a faint, metallic tink-tink, almost like wind chimes in a distant yard. I froze, the beam of my flashlight trembling across the cracked plaster wall. I knew immediately where it came from, and my stomach dropped. At the far end of the corridor stood a row of safety coffins, 18th century contraptions designed for the paranoid fear of being buried alive. Each coffin had a rope inside, threaded through a hole to the surface, tied to a small brass bell mounted on an iron stand. If someone was accidentally buried alive, they could tug the rope and the bell above ground would ring to alert caretakers. Most of them had frayed ropes and rusted bells, useless antiques. But one of them, the one third from the back, the bell jingled again, faint but clear, metal clinking against metal in the stillness of the museum. My mouth went dry and I forced myself to walk forward, boots thudding against the warped wooden floor. My flashlight beam slid across dusty displays, faded plaques, glass cases, until it landed on the coffin at the far end. The bell on top of it trembled, the clapper still swaying slightly. The rope dangled loose against the coffin lid. And that's when I saw it. The rope wasn't attached anymore. It had been cut. The frayed end dangled in midair, nowhere near the bell, which meant it couldn't have rung. My chest tightened, a cold sweat breaking across my back as I whispered to myself, "No, no, that's not possible." I leaned closer, squinting at the coffin. The wood was dark oak, polished once but dulled by time, the lid sealed with tarnished brass clasps. I shone the light across the lid and whispered, "Hello? Is someone in there?" My voice cracked, and the sound of it seemed to echo too loudly in the narrow hall. The scratching stopped. Silence fell so heavy I could hear my own heartbeat in my ears. Then, faint but unmistakable, came 3 dull knocks from inside the coffin. I stumbled backward so fast I nearly tripped over a display stand, my keys clattering against my leg. "Jesus Christ," I whispered, my voice shaking. "No, no, no." I wanted to run, but some force kept me rooted, staring at that coffin. The air smelled faintly of iron now, sharp and metallic, and I realized my nose was bleeding. I wiped it with the back of my hand, smearing red across my knuckles. I called my supervisor the next morning, told him what I'd heard. He laughed, said I'd probably fallen asleep on duty and dreamed it. I didn't push it, didn't want to lose my job, but I knew what I'd heard. And the next night it happened again. The bell rang faintly, though the rope was still cut, and the scratching started as soon as I stepped into the hall. This time the knocks were louder, more insistent. Knock dash, knock dash, knock dash, knock, faster, frantic. I shouted, "Stop it, stop it. Just stop it." My voice cracked, echoing down the hall, and for a moment the coffin fell silent. Then came a sound that made my blood freeze, a low, muffled voice from inside, hoarse and distant, whispering, "Let me out." I sprinted down the corridor, my flashlight beam bouncing wildly, keys jangling like alarm bells. I slammed the security office door behind me and sat there, chest heaving, tears streaming down my face. I stayed there until morning, until the sun bled through the dirty windows. And when I finally stepped out, the coffin hole was silent, the bell still, the rope dangling limp. But every night since it happens, the bell rings though the rope is cut, the scratching comes from inside the lid, and the voice whispers more clearly, calling my name now. "Daniel, Daniel, let me out." I've thought about quitting, but something holds me here, something I can't explain. Some nights when I sit alone in my apartment, I hear it even there, faint ringing from the dark corner of the room, the sound of a bell swaying where no bell should be. And last night when I came home, there was a rope lying across my kitchen table, frayed at the end, damp with fresh blood. Okay, everyone, that is The Coffin Bell by T. Kingfisher, also known as Ursula Vernon. I hope you enjoyed this read-along with me. If you did, leave a like. If you disliked it, well, I guess you can hit that thumbs down button, but please tell me why in the comments. Subscribe if you haven't already, and come back on Wednesday for another Let's Read Aloud. We're going to be reading aloud from a horror anthology. So if you have any suggestions of something I should read from that book, let me know in the comments. Otherwise, until next time, happy haunting.